This hour, we are watching protests against the election of Donald Trump as the next president of the United States. Spontaneous protests have developed in about a dozen cities across the country, from New York City to Oakland, California. You're looking now at a live shot of Oakland. That is Oakland, California. In New York, thousands of protests gathered on Fifth Avenue outside Trump Tower, where Donald Trump works and lives. The protests have been peaceful. We will have live reports from several cities throughout this hour as we continue to monitor the reaction to the election of Donald Trump as the next president of the United States. But first, President Obama is the most noble man who has ever lived in the White House, and he proved that again today.
I had a chance to talk to President-elect Trump last night, about 3:30 in the morning, I think it was, to congratulate him on winning the election. And I had a chance to invite him to come to the White House tomorrow to talk about making sure that there is a successful transition between our presidencies. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. And over the next few months, we are going to show that to the world.
American history is as much mythology as it is history, especially when it comes to the presidency. President Obama is a noble and honorable and decent man, but to say he is the most noble man who has ever lived in the White House is not as great a compliment as it sounds. It certainly sounds like an hysterical exaggeration to a Trump voter, but the bar on presidential nobility and honor is lower than they think. There was never anything noble about owning slaves. George Washington became a slave owner when he was 11 years old. Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and won the Civil War, but he also played his part in the genocidal war against Native American tribes. That is the forgotten part of the Lincoln presidency. That's the forgotten part of American history, Native American blood on presidents' hands. There's nothing noble about genocide, but our presidential mythology insists that most of the 44 of them have been noble men, despite the fact that most of them tried to exterminate Native American tribes. Most of them were racists. Many, if not most of them, were anti-Semites. Donald Trump will take his place now among the racists who have lived in the White House. Our political culture has a method of normalizing everything and anything that happens in our democracy. Respect for the office. You will be hearing that a lot now, respect for the office. You will be told that you should have respect for the office of the presidency, but respect should never be given automatically. The office of the presidency has committed crimes. That's why Richard Nixon, the most recent recorded racist and anti-Semite in the Oval Office, was forced to resign the presidency after an impeachment investigation. The office of the presidency has supported slavery. The office of the presidency has supported racist policies. The office of the presidency masterminded the genocide of Native American tribes. There is nothing to respect in that office other than the man who occupies it. And no man should automatically be given respect. Respect must be earned. It must be earned or it is meaningless. Respect for the office is a phrase invented by politicians. It doesn't appear in the Constitution. Respect for the office is Washington's empty, meaningless phrase designed to turn us all into politicians, to make us all compromisers of our principles. Respect for the man. And unfortunately, it has only been men. Respect for the man who occupies the Oval Office must be earned. And I have never once, in any of the public record of President Barack Obama's life and his time as president, seen anything about him as a person that is not fully deserving of respect. And I have never once, in the public record of Donald Trump's life, seen anything that is worthy of respect. Our presidents have not been the giants that our mythology has turned them into, but they have all been bigger and better men in most ways than Donald Trump. In order for Donald Trump to avoid being the lowest point in presidential history, he will have to show us a version of himself that we've never seen. Last night was a start.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us. It's about us. on our victory. And I congratulated her and her family on a very, very hard-fought campaign. I mean, she fought very hard. Hillary has worked very long and very hard over a long period of time, and we owe her a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country. I mean that very sincerely.
We've never seen that before. No lock her up, no insults. That's a start. As of tonight, about half of the country is already feeling that we've elected the worst president in our history. You know that feeling on a Ferris wheel when you're slowly moving upward, higher and higher, and the view gets better and better? And then when you're finally at the highest point, in an instant, without warning, you're suddenly going down. It's a shocking sensation, that sudden drop. You were just going up and now you're going down, and it feels like you're going down faster than you were going up. It's a confusing sensation, it's disorienting. That sudden drop, that decline, that's where we are, right now. That's what you're feeling, that decline. For 240 years, American government and American civilization has been steadily moving up, slowly but surely improving, rising higher and higher and higher. And then last night, we turned down. That's what you're feeling. That's what the decline of a civilization feels like. The question tonight is, how long will we decline? When will the Ferris wheel go back up? Will Senator Elizabeth Warren crush President Donald Trump in his re-election campaign 4 years from now? Will California's new Senator Kamala Harris do that? How long is this ride? 4 years, 8 years? Millions of people, men, women, and children, who are feeling this decline of the civilization have been crying over these last 24 hours. That's how the big watch party at Wellesley College ended last night, in tears. Wellesley is the women's college that Hillary Clinton graduated from in 1969. Students and alumni from around the world gathered at Wellesley last night to watch a distinguished Wellesley graduate give her first speech as president-elect, the first woman to deliver such a speech. Imagine the enormity of that disappointment. And that wasn't the only college campus where tears were shed. It was happening on campuses all across the country. And little boys and little girls around the country watching their first election night with high hopes for Hillary Clinton were wiping away tears when they were put to bed last night. The kids whose parents don't have legal documentation to be in this country worried about what would happen to them and what would happen to their parents. Millions of families in this country are living with that fear tonight. Will they be arrested? Will they be deported? Will their children lose their parents? And then there is the stench of the Trumpian vulgarity in the air of this country now. Half the country is reeling under the hard-to-accept realization that they're going to be hearing that voice every day for 4 years, that voice that so often fails in attempts to speak simple English, that voice we've all heard lying, that voice we've all heard bragging about his favorite methods of sexual assault. In what kind of society, in what kind of civilization can that be the voice of the president? But millions of people love that voice. Millions of American women love that voice, voted for that voice. Millions of Americans are thrilled about this election. Millions think it's funny. And even more think it doesn't matter. 46.9% of eligible voters did not vote. 25.6% of eligible voters voted for Hillary Clinton. 25.5% of eligible voters voted for Donald Trump. So the biggest category of voters were the ones who didn't care whether Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump became the next president. That's the way it is in the decline of a civilization. Some people don't care. Some people can feel what's happening and others can't. Others feel the opposite. They celebrate what's happening. Every declining civilization has had their cheerleaders on the way down. Some of those cheerleaders went to Wellesley College today. 2 young men in a pickup truck with a Donald Trump flag drove through the Wellesley College campus today while Wellesley students were still crying about what happened last night. Wellesley police asked them to leave. That's what happens with civilizations in decline. People laugh at other people's pain. Decency evaporates under the shadow of a leader who has no decency. Civilizations cannot survive without human decency, without sympathy, without kindness. Not decency and sympathy and kindness for your friends and family. That's the easy version. Without decency and sympathy and kindness for people we don't know, we are a dysfunctional society, a declining civilization. This Ferris wheel will go back up, thanks to the Constitution. No other civilization in decline has ever had the United States Constitution to save it, to turn it around, to send it back up. The Constitution gives the president a fixed 4-year term. The Constitution gives all of the real governing powers not to the president but to the Congress. The only absolute power the president has is the power to grant pardons. That's it. The Congress can control everything else. Everything else. The Senate controls all of the president's important appointments to the cabinet and the courts through the Senate confirmation process. And the Democrats in the Senate will have 2 more senators next year than they have this year. New York Senator Chuck Schumer will take over from Harry Reid as Senate Minority Leader. Senator Schumer is already well schooled in all of the obstructionist parliamentary tools that have been very deliberately granted to the minority in the Senate to slow things down, to stop the ruling party from getting carried away. If Paul Ryan's House of Representatives gets carried away with any of Donald Trump's crazier ideas, Senate Democrats will be able to make most of those things disappear using the filibuster rules of the Senate. Sanity in Washington, and to some extent the world, is now up to the United States Senate, the Democratic minority in the United States Senate. They now have the most difficult job to do that any senators have ever had to do. They are the only people who can save the country from rampant, out of control Trumpism. The Trump presidency will have its victories, but all of its defeats will be at the hands of the Democrats in the United States Senate. One of the senators the country is now counting on more than it has ever counted on its senators before will be our first guest tonight. Senator Al Franken will join us.